As we load up into Sequence 9, Revelations, I welcome you to a brand new episode. Hi, how's it going? You have fun? Alright, a homecoming. Ezio and Sophia have arrived at Masyaf after many weeks of travel. Time to open the library.
Over here. Such a climb. È così bello qui. This is where your order began?
It began thousands of years ago, but here it was reborn.
By the man you mentioned, Altair?
Altair ibn La'ahad. He built us up and set us free. He saw the folly of keeping a castle like this. It had become a symbol of arrogance and a beacon for all our enemies.
And the mandate for menacing hoods? Was that his idea as well? You mentioned a creed before. What is it?
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
That is rather cynical.
It would be if it were doctrine, but it is merely an observation of the nature of reality. To say that nothing is true is to realize that the foundations of society are fragile, and that we must be the shepherds of our own civilization. To say that everything is permitted is to understand that we are the architects of our actions, and that we must live with their consequences, whether glorious or tragic.
Do you regret your decision to live as an assassin for so long?
I do not remember making that decision. This life, it chose me. For 3 decades, I have served the memory of my father and my brothers, and fought for those who have suffered the pain of injustice. I do not regret those years, but it is time to live for myself, and let them go. Let go of all of this.
We're finally at the door. Oh man.
Then let go. You will not fall far.
Man, some of the other Assassin's Creed games' endings have been insane, so I'm really looking forward to see what Revelations has up its sleeves. Last episode was crazy. It was crazy. I'm excited to see what's in store. I remember this. This was the beginning of the game. And now we're back. Our enemies are vanquished. We have the keys. We have our lady. Wonder what's next.
The end of the road.
Use the Masyaf keys to complete the puzzle and unlock the library door.
What do you hope to find behind that door?
Knowledge, above all else. Altair was a profound man and a prolific writer. He built this place as a repository for all his wisdom. He saw many things in his life and learned many secrets, both troubling and strange. Knowledge that would drive lesser men to despair.
Does that worry you?
Sophia, you should know by now that I am not a lesser man.
Ezio.
We're gonna assume... Oh, I understand. Okay. Yeah, I understand how this works. It's gotta be just that. Oh, and it can be rotated too, which is great. But it needs to line up, whatever it is. So this probably goes here. This is gonna be at an intersection. Looks like it goes there. This, probably another intersection. This one. This is a 3-way. No, that's a 4-way. This is a 3-way, though. I don't know if this is right, but it seems right, so I'm gonna go with it. This is a 4-way. That looks pretty right. I think I did it. That wasn't too hard.
You had better come out of there alive.
I plan to.
Suddenly a torch. Explore Altair's library. The entire game has been leading up to this. Run seems to be disabled. Okay. We're lighting torches as we go. There's something up here. And some really epic and also creepy music. Okay. I got goosebumps. Creepy chairs. Some sort of symbol.
No books. No wisdom. Just you, fratello mio. Requiescat in pace, Altair.
One last key.
You have seen to my books.
Yes. Some we sent with the Polos. The rest will go with me to Alexandria.
Good. Very good.
Father, I do not understand. Why did you build a library if you did not intend to keep your books?
You should go. When the Mongols return, Masyaf must be empty.
I see. This is not a library at all. It is a vault.
It must stay hidden, Darim. Far from eager hands. At least until it has passed on the secret it contains.
What secret?
Go, son. Go be with your family. And live well.
All that is good in me began with you, Father.
In much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow.
What does it tell you? What do you see?
Strange visions and messages of ones who came before, of their rise and their fall.
But what happens to us, Altair? To our family? What does the apple say?
Who were the ones who came before? What brought them here? How long ago?
Get rid of that thing!
This is my duty, Maria. If you are asked, say I sent the apple away. Tell them I sent it to Cyprus or Cipango, or that I dropped it into the sea. Tell them anything to keep men away from this place. This apple must not be found. Not until the time is right.
Sit a moment and rest. It's interesting, at this point Altair must be ancient. He was 92 last, so he's older than that now. Or 82. 82, 92. Either way, quite an old guy. And he devoted his entire life to keeping that apple safe. Just gave us... That was weird. He gave us all the money that we had. I guess it took it away to do that cutscene or something.
Another artifact. No. You will stay here. I have seen enough for one life. Desmond?
He's talking to me?
I heard your name once before, Desmond. A long time ago. And now it lingers in my mind, like an image from an old dream. I do not know where you are, or by what means you can hear me. But I know you are listening. I have lived my life as best I could, not knowing its purpose, but drawn forward like a moth to a distant moon. And here at last, I discover a strange truth. That I am only a conduit for a message that eludes my understanding. Who are we, who have been so blessed to share our stories like this? To speak across centuries. Maybe you will answer all the questions I have asked. Maybe you will be the one to make all this suffering worth something in the end. Now, listen.
Do you hear me, Cypher? Can you see me? Ah, there you are. Good. A strange place, this nexus of time. I am not used to the calculations. That has always been Minerva's domain. I see you still have many questions. Who were we? What became of us? What do we desire of you? You will have your answers. Only listen, and I will tell you how. Both before the end and after, we sought to save the world. We built vaults within which to work, each dedicated to a different method of salvation. They were placed underground to avoid the war which raged above, and also as a precaution should we fail in our efforts. Each vault's knowledge was transmitted to a single place. It was our duty, mine, Minerva's, and Juno's, to sort and sample all that was collected. We chose those solutions which held the most promise, and devoted ourselves to testing their merits. 6 we tried in succession, each more encouraging than the last, but none worked. And then the world ended. the earth shook for days, the fires burned for weeks, and when the ash had settled, less than 10,000 of your kind still lived, and far fewer of ours. But we carried on, together, to rebuild, to renew. Listen, you must go there, to the place where we labored and lost. Take my words, pass them from your head into your hands. That is how you will open the way. But be warned, much still remains in flux, and I do not know how things will end, either in my time or yours.
Wait, look, his vitals are stabilizing. Something's happening. He's moving.
Desmond, can you hear me? Son?
I know what we need to do.
Snap. Also, that guy called me son. Was that guy calling me son like a nice thing, like hey son, or was that my dad? What? First off, now that we're here, get comfortable, because I always give my thoughts on games when the credits roll. I enjoyed Revelations. And it was interesting. After I finished 1 and I started on 2, it was once I started 2, people started telling me their thoughts about 2 and that trilogy, 2 Brotherhood Revelations, and everyone said, "Oh man, you're gonna love 2. 2's really great." And quite a few people said, "Oh, Brotherhood's good too." And then a lot of people were like, Revelations it's okay. People weren't real excited about Revelations. So leading into it, that was what I had been told so many times. Is that Revelations? It was okay. And I understand where people are coming from when they say that. Having played through the game, it certainly is not as strong as 2 and Brotherhood, but it's got a lot of character and a lot of things that make it unique and that kind of make it stand out from its 2 predecessors. For one, Ezio is different. He's Ezio Auditore, but he is hardened, and it's especially apparent at the very beginning of the game. Whenever he rolls onto the scene, he's old, and I said it at the beginning, he's old and pissed, and that's true. There's almost a sense, especially near the beginning, where he just doesn't care. He's going to do what he needs to do to get stuff done. So I love that. I feel almost that Ezio is more enjoyable in this game than the past 2. I think that his character, his age, his maturity, actually lends itself better to the character. Reconstructing island. Am I getting my brain back? Is that what's happening here? But yeah, the character I feel was stronger. Now, and I had said it in one of the more recent episodes, I did feel like the story of this game was objectively harder to follow. It was a little bit more difficult to follow than 2 and Brotherhood. It was a little more all over the place. That said, it started to get a lot stronger right at the end. The other thing that was a little confusing is that we really did not come out of the Animus, and they had the island where they pulled us out of sequence to take us to the island, which I thought was very interesting, but they kind of abandoned it after the 3rd or 4th sequence. I think after that we only popped back into the island maybe once or twice, and it was just very, very briefly. Especially because at the beginning of the game they had shown us 16, and 16 was a big part of it, and then all of that kind of went by the wayside. And I understand, I did a lot of side stuff. I totally get that. But even if you take that out and you look at just the strict story stuff, just the main quest, etc., they did very little with 16 and the island and all that stuff in the later portion of the game. I would have loved to have seen more of that. More of the conversations that are happening outside of the Animus with some of the other well-known characters talking. I think that would have been cool. But that said, even though Revelations may not have been as strong as 2 in Brotherhood, I gotta say, it's far from meh. There's so many people said, it was okay. I think it was a little better than okay, actually. I enjoyed it, and I really liked the ending, especially because in the previous games, up until the very, very end, you have like this crazy battle, this big guy, this boss fight or whatever, and that was just not needed here. It had been done. I mean, anyone that's playing Revelations, it's assumed, or at least I would hope, that you've played 2 in Brotherhood before. You're playing them all as one long game. And when you do that, you've already experienced these big battles, these boss battles. You are now at the end of Ezio's life. That's not even a big thing now. We had that chariot race with the windsurfing thing, and that was totally cool. And once we finally made it back to Masyaf, I was thinking, there are no more fights. This is it. And it was just a really cool way for them to kind of transition and just tell strictly story. And it was really cool. So we, wandered into the place with Sophia and got to learn about Altair and his final resting place, and I thought that was really, really cool. So overall, I enjoyed Revelations. I did. And I think the biggest selling point for me was not the world, although it was interesting getting kind of a different scenery. That was nice. But it was not the world, it was not the story, it was Ezio himself. Now older, wiser, more mature, and quite frankly, a little bit pissed that made the game for me. And I really enjoyed it. Now the other thing I was looking forward to was that, since Assassin's Creed 2, they've done like these crazy things at the end. And essentially, it's Assassin's Creed 1 also. Like, you go through Assassin's Creed 1, and then at the end, things start getting crazy, and you have, like, the big globe that appears, the hologram, and you're like, what's going on? But it gets, like, more and more crazy as the games go on, and I was expecting that. I'm like, okay, when we get to the end of Revelations, there's going to be some kind of crazy stuff with the people that came before, etc. And the little cutscenes they played were actually quite nice. They had talked about how the Earth got destroyed in, I believe it's like a solar storm or something like that. They had mentioned that in Brotherhood. So it was really cool to actually kind of see that play out in Revelations. Now, the only thing that worries me is that this story, this entire arc, is starting to get very complex. So the thing I'm curious about is what happens now in Assassin's Creed 3. Assassin's Creed 3 has like such mixed opinions. I've seen so many people that said, I can't wait to see what your opinion is going to be of Assassin's Creed 3 because, I personally didn't like it. A lot of people that like it, from what I can tell, it seems to be like their first jump into the series. Apparently, they change a lot of stuff, so you're playing with like a new formula, and for people that are new to the series, it was fine. But people that were old bees having played the last few titles, it was a little weird. So I'm not sure. I don't really know anything about Assassin's Creed 3. I do plan on playing it, partially just to find out what happens with Desmond. I know that his story arc is continued in Assassin's Creed 3, and I want to know what happens to him. Which is it's not a complaint, but it does make me wonder what the dev team was doing. Maybe they were just kind of ramping everything up for 3. I'm not sure, because they don't do a whole lot with Desmond. They really don't. He appears on Animus Island, talks to 16, does some things, but a lot of the game takes place inside of, Ezio's world, which is such a far cry from how they did it previously. In Brotherhood, you are out of the Animus all the time. All the time. There's a lot of different, like, at the end of every sequence you come out, and it was actually really nice because you got to communicate with the different members of the team, and you could talk multiple times. They said multiple different things, and, they're funny, and they're fun to talk to. So you go from that environment where you're constantly coming out of the Animus, and you are reminded that this is all in your head, that you are playing as Desmond. And I think that was lost a little bit. And obviously I knew that we couldn't come out of the Animus because the whole thing is like you're having some difficulty with your brain patterns or whatever. But even just returning to Animus Island, I mentioned that at the beginning of the credit roll, but that would have been nice. I would have liked to have seen more of that, to establish more of the story using that method to bring us out and to have 16, who is such an interesting character, talk to us a little bit more. Now, there is DLC, and I wanted to address that because people have been asking if we're going to cover the DLC, which I believe is called The Lost Archive. And the answer is yes, we are going to be covering the DLC. It is going to continue immediately following this episode, so it'll continue. However, I also understand that there's quite a few people that are very anxious to see Uncharted 4. So here's what I've decided to do. Following this episode, Uncharted 4 is going to begin, which is exciting. People want to see the game, and I want to play it, so I'm excited about that. People also want to see The Lost Archive, but I don't want to hold up Uncharted 4 for anyone else any longer. So what's going to happen is you are going to get Uncharted 4 the normal time slot of noon, and I'm going to be releasing episodes of the Lost Archive DLC in the evening. It's going to come out at 6 p.m. Eastern. So that way you'll be getting basically 2 episodes a day, which is really cool if you're into both series. But that way, if you're still lingering from the Assassin's Creed Let's Play and you want to know what the DLC is about, that you'll be able to experience that. And if you want to watch Uncharted 4, we can go ahead and get started on that without having to delay it any further. I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. I had given it some thought before because I knew that people wanted to see the DLC and I want to experience it. And if you're not aware, from what I understand, the DLC is actually done in the exact same style as Desmond's Journey, which was, I forget what episode we did it on in this series, episode 6 or something, where we went through the first-person block building type thing. That's apparently what the DLC is, and from what I understand, it actually goes through the life of 16, which, once again, is great because he's a very interesting character, and they really build it up at the beginning of Revelations, like we were going to learn a lot more about him, and things were going to be made apparent, kind of put some missing links in the story, and then that only kind of happened, and perhaps their plan all along was to fill in those holes with DLC. But it's kind of a shame because you could have done something completely different with DLC, or maybe even fleshed it out further. I just would have loved to have seen more in the actual game. But that being said, we are going to be going into the DLC, so next time, when you would get the next slot for Revelations, you'll get your episode for the DLC. It's just going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be in the evening. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be very long. It's probably going to be pretty short, probably just a few episodes. But it's going to be completely about 16 and his life. And somehow they're going to do that in the first-person mode again, which is fine. It's just, it was such a far cry. I almost wonder how they came up with that. Whenever we did Desmond's Journey, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, this is so different. You could have just very easily kept the same engine, the same third-person thing going on, and just went with it. And instead, it was like I was in a very weird version of Minecraft. And I believe that's how the DLC is set up as well. I know it's first-person. It may not have the whole block building thing, but it could. I'm not entirely sure of that. But we are going to be starting that soon, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. So now that I've rattled off my thoughts on Revelations, it's time for you to give your thoughts. Be sure to go down to the comments and talk about how you felt about the game. Because I would love to see more people change their minds. It was a little disheartening going into this project because there were so many fans that were, fans of the series that said, this is kind of a sour note for the series. And having played it, I understand. Once again, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't completely agree. Is it as good as 2 in Brotherhood? It's not, but it's kind of a fitting end for Ezio. It really is. It was nice to see him age, find, I guess, love I mean, there is no, from what I understand, there's no other games that feature Ezio, so now he's at the end of his life, and he's with Sophia, I guess? Because, I mean, let's be honest, anyone that has seen 2 or Brotherhood or whatever will know that Ezio is more than a little a ladies' man, and he tends to get around, so maybe he finally settles down with someone. And honestly, that thought in and of itself is a little strange to me, just because it's so, you know, far away from his character. But also, the dude's old. I mean, the dude's like, probably by the end of Revelation, he's probably pushing 60, so he's getting up there, so settling down is probably best for him. It was also interesting in one of the final scenes here where he had the opportunity to take the apple, and he was like, no way. You know, I've been down this road before, I've done my time, I want to stay as far away from this crazy thing as I possibly can. Because he's been, I mean, he's been down this road, he's had the apple. There's parts in 2 definitely, and then I think also Brotherhood, where he's got the apple and he's, you know, killing people and doing all these crazy things with it, and it leads to ruin, because no matter what you do, you have an entirely different organization, just as big or bigger than the Assassins, the Templars, always tracking you, coming after you. And I guess he felt that he could keep at least that one thing safe. You know, he could at least keep that apple safe if he left it there. So he decided to, and that was probably the best thing he could have done, because if he would have taken that, he would have further endangered Sophia's life, which I thought was very interesting, by the way. The fact that you know, she's tied to the tree or whatever, and then he saves her, and the first thing she says is, "I'm confused," because she has had no idea this entire time, the entire game, no clue what's going on. Ezio's just this very mysterious man, very masculine guy who shows up, very romantic, charming, but also, why is he here? Why is he doing these things? You know, what's going on? Why does he need these books? What is this? So I'm sure that would be a very interesting conversation. What's interesting is that all of that must have taken place, you know, off screen, because he said that they spent the night in Acre. So that must have been where everything was explained. And that would have been a very interesting evening, I'm sure, because she would have went with him and been like, okay, so we just got chased through town, all of this has gone down, you've got to finally explain who you are. And once again, I bet that was a very interesting evening indeed. Anyway, I've talked for quite a while, and these are excruciatingly long credits. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through these, let these finish up, and see what happens after the credits roll. I'm brought back here. Okay. Sure. Just drops me right back off here. Okay, well, I've already completed all of this stuff. There's nothing else to do up here. So perhaps I'll jump back in. Just to see if anything's different. So I'm back in, and I told you guys earlier in the game that I would use the Desmond skin at some point. This is it! I've also come back to Cappadocia, just because I could. You can return here, and actually you have to, because earlier I was trying to get a special cutscene. There's apparently a secret cutscene with Sophia if you get all the books. Well, guess what? There's books here, and they're the most expensive books in the game. There's 4 books to get, and they're each like nearly 100 grand, which is crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and end it here. This episode is over, but off screen I'm going to try and work on trying to get a little bit more money so I can afford those books, and then I can actually show the cutscene in a special separate video. So I'm going to do that. As one final thing to let you know, there is apparently a short film called Assassin's Creed Embers, pretty sure it's called Embers, that wraps up the end of Ezio's life, which is been recommended to me multiple times throughout the comments of this series. It's something that I will go check out. I don't know if it's available public on the internet. If it is, I'll try and find it and put it in the description box. Otherwise, you'll kind of be on your own to get a hold of it. But that wraps up Assassin's Creed Revelations. Once again, thank you so much for watching. And next time, we'll be starting Uncharted 4, but we will also be continuing the DLC. And be sure to keep a lookout for the special video where we show the secret dialogue between Ezio and Sophia. Thanks again. See you next time for more Stephen Plays.